Hello and welcome to another edition of 310 to Left. Tom Karen with you here as we wrap up the year, our first year podcasting. Got started way back at the beginning of the season. Alex Spear and I bringing in all kinds of guests for interviews along the way. Jemai Webster, Julian McWilliams have become important parts of this as well. And most importantly, you have been terrific through all this. We've gotten great feedback. We hope you've enjoyed the interviews and you've certainly given us a lot to think about going into year two. But before we do that, and before we all get healthy and start talking about New Year's resolutions and dry January and all that stuff, let's sit back and enjoy the best moments of year one. Looking back at the year-end tradition that every podcast does, the best moments of the year as we look back on 2024 on 310 to Left. This team, keeping an eye on what they've been doing. I've used the word resilient on more post-game shows than I think I've ever used in one season before, right? I mean, it's, say what you want about hanging around 500, but they've been doing it as the injuries have mounted and all of that, right? I mean, you've been out for pretty much the year. O'Neill and Devers have both been dealing with knees. You've had Casas on the 60-day. The injuries have just piled up. When you watch this team, what strikes you most about what they've done? And clearly it goes the other way, right? There are times like after Chicago, you're like, still a 500. But then they come back and beat the Phillies. You're like, oh, hey, they're 500, right? 500 can come at you from a number of ways. Give us your sort of assessment from 3,000 miles, what you've seen from this team.
Yeah, I'm riding the wave with you guys, man. This is that was an awesome game, awesome win, It's just been fun to watch the young guys kind of step up. Like you guys said, it's been the amount of injuries has been incredible. And, to like everyday guys that we're really relying on to post and to be a big part of our team. And the way they've stepped up has been so fun to watch because that's a big sign of maturity, and you can see them starting to gain more confidence in their game. Looking at Hamilton and Rafaela, I think he's just scratching the surface, and Duran, these guys, Abreu, that's a lot of young guys that are contributing. I think if you get one or two of those guys in a normal season to contribute like they are, then that's really good. But we got 4 or 5 guys doing that, not to mention the bullpen. So it's been fun to watch, and like you said, very resilient, very gritty team, and just seems like the boys are competing.
How much are you watching? Are you locked in every night, or are you have you been kind of giving yourself a little bit of space from the game? Are you texting with all of the guys or all of the story time camp alums, or are you keeping everything at arm's length?
Yeah, I'm definitely keeping up with the guys. We're just we've created a lot of great friendships, and it's. I think it's important to stay close with those guys, and a lot of texts. Obviously the group chats goes off pretty much every night, but most nights I'm locked in. I try to take some nights off to really be with the family, and but I like for my boys to watch it too. Watching the game with Stetson and Nolan, he's a little younger to really understand, but I think Stetson, he likes watching the Red Sox, and it's fun to see it through his eyes a little bit. So that's a unique opportunity. So it's always tough for me to get away from the game, but I've done good to give it a little space too.
When Alex and I both covered AC as a player, right? When Alex Cora was playing, he was one of those guys where everyone would say, he's going to be a great manager someday, to the point where Cora would be like, I'm kind of tired of guys telling me I'm going to be a great manager. I'd like to keep playing for a while. I enjoy playing the game. You have kind of been thrust into that role a little bit. Mentoring is one thing when you're playing, right? But you've sort of taken on a little bit of a role as an unofficial coach with this group when you've been injured. And you took that really to that other level with the camp this winter, bringing in some young guys and sort of passing on some of the lessons Tulowitzki and others passed on to you, right? So what's that like for you? Like, how have you adapted to that? Do you enjoy it? Have there been any aha moments where maybe something you said has manifested itself in a game and you said, there it is. That's exactly what we've been talking
Um, it's something that I've embraced, definitely, like you said, over the last few years. I feel like in my last, year or so in Colorado, that was something that I made that was going to be important to me. And with like anything else, with time and with experience, you grow into it and you feel more confident in that space. And I think, for me, it's the guys are gonna experience is the best teacher. But if I can, help with like little recovery stuff, or I've been talking with Duran a lot about that, and just man, I think it goes a long way just to hear from veterans about as young players, like even if the stats aren't going great, like the at bats are going well. Just that affirmation and just having the process be what you're really dialed on. I think those are the things that you can really relay and really kind of hammer to the young guys. And because baseball's not fair, man. You're not going to have the results every night, and something you're working on that day, might not show up in the game that night. So just more of like a mentality to where it's I'm building these game of negativity. I think that's important.
It's actually interesting that you bring up Duran, because I think, when you were throughout your career with Colorado, you were one of the most durable players in major leagues, right? Like you were a guy who wanted to post seemingly 162. From afar, what is it like watching Jarren Duran, having played every game of the season so far? And do you think he can do 162?
Man, I love it. He's my favorite player, man. I love watching JD. He just ignites the team, I feel like he, with all the triples, I think he's leading the league in triples, and his at-bats are really good. He doesn't really throw away at-bats. He just brings a lot of energy to the club with his speed, stealing bases, running around in the outfield. And yeah, he's young. He's 27 maybe. He can play 162. He just runs so hard, man. He runs angry, and I think you just gotta, that was a big thing for us in Colorado. We were trying to recover as best as we could, and it's a little easier to do in Boston, without the thin air. But it's something you have to be really diligent about, and those are the things that we've talked about, is because those are the type of players we want to be, and that's what it's important to JD to go out there and play every day and be a tone setter. So you got to do the things off the field, after the game, before the game, so that you're available.
So it would have been harder to play at altitude, just like on the physical tool, but how many triples would Jarren Duran hit if Coors Field was his home, instead of a place where the left field wall was 310 to left?
I mean, yeah, he'd have at least 5 more, That's the thing about Coors that a lot of people don't realize, is the outfield is so big,
Yeah.
So much space, so much green grass that man, if you get it by the outfielder, like he can go 3 every time.
No doubt about that. I want to ask you about the pitching, even though you're not necessarily working with the. How amazed have you been by what this group has been able to do? I mean, we call it the Andrew Bailey effect, call it what you want, right? But it's been the right voice at the right time. You said you're watching the roller coaster along with us. Have you been as amazed as we have at what this pitching staff's been able to do?
I have, man. It's been incredible to watch. Like you said, it's not much of a huge change in, personnel player wise. It's been a kind of an overhaul, I guess, in the strategy of how we're doing it. And obviously Bailey and a lot of our, analytic guys have a lot to do with that. And, it seems like it kind of started there at the end of last year. I feel like we were onto the, kind of onto the scent there. And I think, man, the way that they've overhauled that and just made it a strength of our club has been fun to watch, because that's been something that hasn't been the case, obviously, in the last couple of years. But, yeah, just super pumped, to see guys like Houck take a huge step, and the way he just has that presence about him, and just, he's going 6 or 7 every night, it feels like, and possibly the whole game. So that's fun to watch.
One guy I did want to ask you about is Marcelo Mayer, and I know you guys, started the connection when you were up there rehabbing, right? And I know that he stayed in pretty close touch with you, and he's really, watching him play healthy this year has been something special. What's the ceiling? I mean, what are we going to see someday from Marcelo Mayer?
Yeah, that's it's so key to know in your mind and in your heart that you're healthy. And I think we're seeing that kind of come to fruition with Marcelo. He did it the right way. He went about his rehab and did his thing, man. So prop to him for doing that and taking his time there. And you can just see he's advanced, man. He's just super comfy at the plate. I love his swing. I love just his whole approach there. He's hitting line drives. He's not hitting like towering home runs or beating the ball on the ground. He hits the ball on the line a lot, and I think that's a sign of a really good hitter. And he's just smooth, man. It seems like the game goes slow for him, and that's always a good sign.
You've obviously been very engaged with the game. It seems as if, not that the game was fast for you, because obviously you're a super cerebral player anyway, but it does seem as if, I don't know, like there's this kind of awareness of things happening in the game and an opportunity to look at things globally a little bit. Like you enter the Matrix, right? I don't know if you ever watched that movie. Maybe I'm dating myself. Okay, well, it might be a good one if you want to figure
Google
out,
it.
Are you able to suddenly have things that seem rapid sometimes slow down in terms of the way that you're able to watch them unfold?
That's something that I try to do every day, and right when I got called up, my first game against Yankees, I was able to do well in that game. I hit a home run, and when I got on first, that was when I realized baseball's truly a fraternity. The man himself, Aaron Judge, we would go back and forth, and he's told me a lot of things about hitting and about what he tries to think about when he goes up there. But the thing that sticks with me the most is he told me, you got to figure out a way to try to make 103 look like 93 and 93 look like 83. That was the best advice that I could have gotten, because it really reflects the type of hitter that he is as well, where he just starts early, just loads, gets up to a hanging point, and then gets the foot down and tries to have as smooth a swing as possible. So that's what I try to do with my eye training, where I'll try to slow that process down as much as possible and try to actually look at the space in front of the ball instead of the ball itself, because if you're just looking at the ball itself, it's moving so fast that the images that your brain is perceiving are behind the actuality of the ball's velocity coming in. So slowing the ball down, controlling the environment around me, those are all very, very regular things that I do on a daily basis. But yeah, it's something that I try to train as much as possible through just doing it in a controlled environment, so I can try to go out there and do it in an uncontrolled one.
I had a lot of conversations with Trevor Story before the season about leadership. We talked a lot about leadership in this script. Remember, a couple different times he said to me, watch Tristan Casas. He's developing into a leader. 24-year-old guy, you don't claim leadership, right? You grow into the leadership group. Talk a little bit about that, how different that has been, certainly before the injury, but even how you've been able to stay engaged with this team. It's a very young team. Suddenly you're not much younger than the rest of the team, right? It's a young team around you. You are part of that leadership group now. Is that different? Are you just being yourself and those things kind of fall into place? Is that something you strive to be? Take us through a little of that process from being the new kid on the block to part of a leadership group of a major league team.
Right. I guess it started in high school. My freshman year of high school, I would see how the seniors would treat me, and I would just tell myself that I'm going to do it differently when I get older. When I'm a junior, when I'm a senior, I'm going to do things differently, where people would tell me what to do and how to do it. And they would, I'm not going to say that they would haze me or shame me or do any of that, but it was just it wasn't the type of leadership that I wanted to exemplify. So when I was a junior, when I was a senior in high school, it was more a help me with this. I'm not going to make you do this with me. It was a fraternity. It was a it was just a group setting. It wasn't an individualized pointing out. So since I've gotten into pro ball, I've always felt like I've just tried to control what I can control. I try to show up early. I try to do the right things, treat people with respect, and everything else is going to fall in line. I hold myself accountable for my actions, which in a way allows me to hold other people accountable for their actions. If I don't treat people the right way, and if I'm not doing the right things, and I'm not playing the game the right way, and I'm not doing things that I need to, nobody's gonna even value the word that I say, let alone want to follow me in my path of greatness per se. So I think just doing whatever I feel is best for me and fighting for what I believe in gives the people around me or in the clubhouse or the younger guys a little bit of freedom to be who they want to as well. And I don't want them to follow me. I want them to follow themselves. And by them following themselves, they might be following me because I follow myself. I have a gut feeling that certain things are right for me in the right time and the right place. And I think logically, and I have reason for what I do. And I feel like as long as guys do that, they can go about how they could go about things however they want to. I don't assume any type of role, but eventually, if you do things the right way for enough time and you get good results, people should follow if they want similar ones. All the things that I do at a certain point, I was taught by somebody. Everything, I'm a product of my environment and everybody around me. So I've taken things from everybody, which is what I want to leave for the people behind me and even the people that are here. I want them to take, quote unquote, the tools of the Titans is all.
It's interesting because you kind of let people, I think you're encouraging people to have the freedom to find their own path, but at the same time, I was just up in Portland in AA a couple of days ago, and over there you now have several of the players engaging in mindfulness meditation on the field before the game. So it is interesting to see that areas in which you, I think, have kind of struck out on your own, in which you have given yourself the freedom to pursue yourself. Other people have followed suit.
Right, and those aren't things that I invented.
Yeah.
Those aren't things that I made up. Those are things that I took from somebody else, and I just take them to the nth level because I, feel like they help me so much that I do them on a daily basis, and that, that shows consistency, and then that breeds success. It's a funny thing because I had the bobblehead night, May 14th, which is a pose of me doing a Pilates exercise. And I remember my first day here, my major league debut, I go into AC's office and he tells me, "Hey, I'm proud of you. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't change." I said, "Okay, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to do the same thing that I had been doing for 5 years in the minor leagues that nobody's ever given me a problem about." So I go outside and I do my thing, and all of a sudden the pitchers that day, which some of them are still on this team, it's funny, they tell me, "Hey, you can't do that." And then I come into the top step and there's a coach that's no longer here who told me, "Hey, that was funny, but don't ever do that again." And then I have people telling me, "Don't do that, don't do that, don't do that." And 18 months later, I have a bobblehead of me doing that exact same thing. So, and it's not because of the results that I have on the field, or it's not because of the Rookie of the Year finish or whatever I've done on the field. It's just because of the consistency I have with it. I do it every single day, whether I want to or not, whether it's sunny or not, whether I feel like it or not. I do it, and if you can at least appreciate the play that I have on the field, there's at least a little bit of honor and the consistency that I have in my routine.
And I think you resonate with fans because of that. I don't remember, I told you at spring training, we were talking about setting you up for shows, something. I said, I just want to tell you, my 2 young sons think you're great for that very reason, right? We all try to teach our kids to be true to yourself in whatever you're pursuing in life, right? You have younger kids, right? Don't do what everybody else tells you to, for good or bad, right? Find your own path. And I think baseball has traditionally had a way of sanding down everyone's edges, right? You got to fit in. You got to you can't be a round peg in a square, whatever it is, right? But you've forged your own path and stayed true to who you are, and the success has come, right? And so then you get the pat on the back with the success. But you wouldn't have changed if you were struggling. I think that's a long way to get to. I see fans really appreciating you. Have you felt that? Like, I feel you have a very unique connection with the fans of Boston, not just because you're a successful member of the Boston Red Sox, but because of who you are and how you let your vulnerability show and you let your personality show. And I think they appreciate that. Do you feel that?
Right, and that was one of the things I said about a consistency, whether I'm playing well or whether I'm not, or, you know, unfortunately whether the team's doing well or whether we are. I don't deviate from my routine. I don't get my confidence from results. I get it from my preparation, which is because of my routine, which gives me confidence. That's the order of events for me, and I do it in a way where I don't get in anybody's way, or I don't hinder anybody from their path. I go out on my own, and I try to make it a point to get out of everybody's way, which is why it's almost it's unprecedented, because I do it so far away from everybody's, because I try to stay out of the way, which is almost a bad thing, I guess, because it's like I'm not with the team. I try to, you know, get out of everybody's way, but I just, that's the order of events for me, and it has nothing to do with the results I get on the field, because baseball is it's a very, very skewed game, and it's tough to draw confidence from results, because it's the only thing that you can do everything right and still have a bad result and have a bad process and get a good result, you know. So it's how do I justify a line drive out to shortstop and then a squibber up the third base line for a hit, or JD's night the other night was beautiful. He had the line out to right, he had the line out to short, and then he gets the pop-up hit double for on the infield, and then comes up with the winning base hit. You know, that's a credit to him staying in the game, hustling out of the box on that double, and then staying in it enough to get that game-winning hit after we had an amazing comeback. So that's baseball right there, and you know, he's doing great this year as well.
I will ask about. It's interesting to think about Jaron, in part because you guys were part of the same draft class in 2018. And I realized that you didn't really play together at, you know, he went straight to Lowell back when that was a thing, and you were barely in the Gulf Coast League before you got banged up, but got to be together in Instructs that year. What's it been like to watch kind of so many pieces of, you know, kind of it's kind of like a Rubik's Cube coming together for him right now, right? Where all of a sudden a lot of the sides are starting to resolve at the same time. What's that been like for you as someone who's known him and, you know, and played with him across multiple levels over 6 years?
Right. He's one of the first people I met. We went to the Instructs in Dominican in 2018, and we spent 2 weeks there together, and I got to know him very well. I mean, the JD I know is, you know, opening up 2019, hitting 400 in the first half in high A. So I'm not surprised by anything he's doing. That is the kind of player he is. And in AAA, he showed power, and in high A, he showed contact. Struggled a little bit in AA, but then went to AAA and turned it around. And then, you know, has had his ups and downs here in the big leagues, but now is showing the prolific offensive, defensive, base running monster that he can be. And I'm super proud of him, because he exemplifies a lot of the qualities that I try to as well. Just sticking true to yourself and not worrying about what other people say, having a lot of humility. And I'm really proud of him and how everything's going for him, because he deserves it.
You've been the leader of his All-Star campaign, right? Like, that was unbelievable when you were on the air, reeling up.
Let the record show. You said it on Nesson first.
Yeah.
I mean, I know everybody pays attention to ESPN because of the national, but you did sort of warm up to the task.
Had you
just took it to the next level.
Had you researched when you were giving the year-by-year strikeout rate?
I went on the first time that we talked about Willier, and we talked about Raffy, and then we talked about T.O. But I was ready to say all those facts that day, which I left that interview really frustrated. I was like, man, I can't believe I studied all that and I didn't get to say it. So then the next time comes, and then I get cut off because I had more stuff to say.
That's right.
I had more stuff to say.
You were literally launching in a couple more stats as they went to break.
And then that night I was even more frustrated because I was like, I had the chance and I started it and I didn't even finish it, which is worse than not even doing it. And then I got on ESPN and I was like, okay, doing it. I gotta. This is it.
You were not going to be denied.
I talked about the defense. I talked about the base running, the games, the this and that, which like I was going to do on the Nesson, but I didn't get the chance to. Which was why I was like, all right, we need to talk about JD that one time. I was
had a longer inning.
Yeah.
The team kept going.
Yeah, the second time we got to 2 outs quick, and I was like, yeah, enough about me. We need to talk about JD because I knew it.
It was so good.
And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get another chance to do this, but yeah, I mean, I could pretty much say the same things now. He might even be leading.
It's only a 90-minute podcast. We don't have time.
Oh, okay.
That return in May, the T-shirts are everywhere. The steps out of the box. You get to do a 360 and look around the ballpark. Like
the
before
White Sox
you
did a
threw
really good
that
job.
pitch,
Thais
what
did
was
a
it like?
fantastic job.
What was that whole lead up to the first pitch?
It was a lot. Like obviously, nothing in my head changed with what I was doing. Like it was just like it's another thing. Like yeah, we'd have people like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear. I'm like, it is what it is. There's nothing I can do to change it. So why bother with sitting there feeling sorry for myself? I never had really a why me moment. I had more of a why not me moment. Like out of all the people I know, and I don't know if you have this impression yet of me or not, but I'm a relatively happy-go-lucky person. Out of all the people I know, I'm probably the best equipped to deal with something like this. Because you know what? There's nothing I can do to change it. All I'm going to do is go and do what I need to do and then have a smile on my face and mess around with as many people as I can. And that's about it. But yeah, it was definitely an emotional experience coming back May 29th. It got delayed a little bit because my elbow wasn't quite recovering in my rehab assignment, but that was the precursor for what was already happened. That had already happened. My ligament was already torn. I was already gone, but I refused to not get back. I mean,
you had said you were going to pitch last year.
I was going to pitch last year no matter what. It didn't matter if it was right-handed or left-handed. I would have been back on a mound at some point in a big league game, and there was no way I was going to be able to stop it. I mean, I would just white knuckle and grit my teeth and go for it, even if it was only the one outing. I was hoping it was just a little bit of scar tissue that was in there that would just snap off and I'd be back to normal. Fortunately, it wasn't. Having Matt step out and give me that time to just soak it all in. I mean, having the Team Liam signs behind the bullpen from Bianca and all the guys at the Wash Foundation was a big deal. And getting a chance to, I was able to, I did some stuff with Bianca through the foundation. Nate had a sign that was on the side that was like, I'm battling too. I just got diagnosed. I've caught up with him now. We're going to catch up with him when we go back to Chicago. But it's like seeing all those things and then seeing how many people just in the game have been kind of affected by it. So I got Chad Bettis. I had Chad Bettis reach out. I had Jameson Taillon reach out. I had Trey Mancini reach out. Guys that have been through this. I mean, having guys like that, and it made a difference in my recovery because Jameson Taillon had said something, and I can't remember verbatim, but the gist of it was nobody can tell you what you can and cannot do. Everybody's different. It's your walk. It's your journey. Do what you need to do. So I think it was that. I got that text, and that was after round one. I'd just been playing catch. So I think the next day or 2 days later, whenever I went to the field again, I'm like, screw it, I'm throwing a bullpen. And just threw bullpens in the rest of the time. So anyone who says that I came back too early and this is why I got hurt, no. I mean, anything last year, me coming back, was going to be too early. Just from a recovery standpoint, all this sort of stuff. But as far as health-wise, no, it wasn't too early. I threw more bullpens than anybody else last year.
Did you really?
I was throwing,
in that time?
I was throwing 2 bullpens every day, every week. And like max effort pens, like everything. I threw absolutely everything.
But you had said that your happy place, whatever you want to call it, baseball,
happy
like
place
that was your...
I may not look happy at all times when I'm doing it, but it's my happy place.
And you need that. I don't think people realize when you're going through something like that, you have to be as close to normal as you can be.
You need the monotony. You need to be as normal as you can. Like there was a bunch of people that they're getting treatments while I was at the hospital, and they'd come in and get chemo, they'd have that day off, and then the next day they'd be at work because that's what they need to do. They need to be able to like force themselves to wake up. What I noticed is, so I had treatment on Mondays and Tuesdays. On Wednesday and Thursday, I was wiped out. Like I was wiped out, especially for the first couple of rounds. First and third round, actually, I was more wiped out than anything else because it's the first infusion and then the first rapid infusion. By Friday, I was at the field because I knew that if I didn't force myself to get there on Friday, it would be at the earliest the next Monday, and then. I know myself. I know if I get given a chance, I'm going to psych myself out. I'm going to convince myself that I don't need to do it. I've done all that I can. Like I've done enough in this game that I deserve kind of that. And no, there's no deserving anything in this game. You have to earn everything you get. And so for me, it was forcing myself to go out, get back into the field, and that forces me to kind of. That's why I never ask for a day off in the pen. If I ask for a day off, I'm going to take advantage of that. Like, oh, I'm not feeling great, I need a day off. Like, if I never ask for a day off, I never have an excuse of why I'm not pitching that day.
Love that. Your wife, she was the rock through it all, obviously. Yeah. And I've talked to so many people over the years. We do the telethon every year, so I've talked to a lot of cancer survivors, and they always tell you that when the dust settles as much as it can, you find out later how tough it was on them.
Oh, without a doubt. Like, I still remember there was one night where I woke up and she was just sobbing in bed. And she was annoyed that, one, I saw that, because she goes, every time I went to the closet, I was crying. Every time I walked away, I was emotional. But I didn't ever want to let you see that because I knew how much that would affect you. And so it's the little things like that like, she never let me see how much she was struggling. Obviously, I knew a little bit because we know each other pretty well, but she never let me openly see it, which I'll be forever grateful for, because it would have broken me more than anything. Like, I was a pretty resilient guy as far as my own stuff, because you know what? This is me. I know how to do what I need to do. It's like going into a cold tub. It's gonna suck, but if you just get it over with, you feel great afterwards. Similar concept to chemo, I guess. It's gonna suck, but you're gonna feel better afterwards. So that was, it was. I can do that, but knowing the emotional toll it took on your loved ones, that's gonna be that would have been really hard to deal with, and she never let me see it.
How much has that shaped what you guys are doing now? Like, understanding, and you and I had a conversation earlier in camp, just the sort of the holistic approach that really is needed to get someone through it and someone's family through it. Like, it's the doctor tells you, here's the treatment, here's how you get through it. And you as the patient, you more so, you're an athlete, but everybody, you're in the fight. Everybody else is sort of going to the closet to cry.
So luckily I have a really good support system, and as far as people I know in the professional world and everything. So Mayo Clinic, they were great. They were like, hey, if you need a therapist, we've got someone on staff. If Chrissy needs a therapist, we've got someone on staff. If anybody needs to talk to anybody, we've got people around. But I had several friends, like one of our close friends, they run a foundation called All Secure. And they deal with mainly veterans with PTS. But they also have therapists and all this sort of stuff. They're like, hey, if you need anybody to talk to, we've got you, don't worry about it. Like, people like that had reached out just as offering hands with just to like, hey, if there's anything you need, let us know. I mean, I got so many weighted blankets at the house now. We had people just like sending over gift bags and everything like that. I got socks, I got chemo hats, I've got like weighted blankets, teas. I mean, Danny Coulomb, a guy who's now with the Orioles, used to be with the Twins, he sent me Preggy Pops because his sister-in-law went through it. And Preggy Pops, these little like anti-nausea like hard candies. One, delicious. And two, they were fantastic.
Really?
Like, they really helped. Like, it's meant to be for morning sickness and stuff like that, but it's those little things that people went out of their way to go say, like, hey, I know this worked for someone else I know that went through cancer. Here, try this. Those little things help, but to be honest, from the get-go, my wife and I was like, look, this is going to suck for us. It's not going to be a great time, but I'm a big proponent of there's a silver lining to absolutely everything. So you know what? Yeah, everything I've been through this year sucks, but what's the silver lining? The silver lining is I can now go around during the season and meet with either current or former cancer patients. So once we did that, we started meeting with kids on the road, whether it be kids, whether it be adults, whether it be survivors, whether it be people who are in the middle of chemo, whether it be people who are just got diagnosed or anything like that. And it was really rewarding for that. And the adverse effect of that is the more I spoke about my treatment, my side effects, my issues, the ones that I ran into, the lighter it got, the easier it got to talk about. So unfortunately in society, you don't like saying the word cancer, you don't like saying the word chemotherapy, no one likes talking about what they went through. But the more things you go through, the more you talk about it, the easier it gets. So trying to get, like, I remember seeing there was a 14-year-old kid in Chicago who had brain cancer, and talking to him, and I was like, oh, what treatment are you on? He was like, not sure, like, if he wants to say. I'm like, no, I was on RB, so Rituxan and Bendeka. He goes, oh, I did the rituximab. And we started talking, and the more you spoke, the more he lightened up, the more he got willing to talk about it, and the mum even noticed and was like, thank you. Because it's like you get into your own head too much that nobody's going to understand. They're going to not judge me for it, but everyone's concerned with asking me the wrong question. No. People I've run into that have any sort of ailment, whether it be a cancer, whether it be a disability, whether it be anything, the more you treat them like a normal person, which they are, the easier it gets to be around society.
No doubt about that. That moment, getting the Jimmy V Award, but back to that, when you gave the speech and you got that ovation, I remember watching that thinking, this was a month ago he got the ovation in Chicago forget on the field. A month later, you get the ovation there. And it's two very different ovations,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's your fans, and as you said, now it's your peers. I'm not going to ask you which one was more impactful.
I wouldn't say
but
peers. I was saying like all the people I'm a fan of.
Yeah, well,
The
all right.
Jimmy
but now
Awards.
you're in that group. Congratulations. But you know what I mean? Like, to me, that was sort of the two worlds embracing you, if that makes sense, right? Your fans and the people you're fans of.
Yeah.
Right? It's a full circle.
Without a doubt. I think that was, as I said, it was a really, really cool experience, being able to talk about that. Unfortunately, like, I've got pretty bad eyes, and so trying to read a teleprompter while engaging the crowd,
Right.
a little tough. So I would go like this, look back at the teleprompter, I don't know where I'm at, and then just start rambling. Because like we sat down and we cultivated this perfect speech. Like, it was great, but I'm not going to sit there and read. That's just not who I am. So it was. We got the main points out there, which is good.
You got it.
But I still remember there was one point in there where I can't remember what my wife told me I'm not allowed to say anymore. She goes, "You say it all the time. You need to stop saying it." Okay, it was like and moving forward and so on, like one of those ones where it was like
a verbal crutch.
Yeah,
you just lean on.
like a continuation kind of thing. Well, I got to a point where I almost said it, looked at her, and said something exactly the same but different wording.
That's funny.
She just see her. She
See, but that's mastering it. That means you were in the moment. Like, that's shaking off a picture right there and delivering what you want to deliver.
That was,
funny.
but yeah, it was definitely a fun experience. It was a very whirlwind experience because we got in the night before, had that day, and then left at 4 o'clock the next morning because we had to be in Atlanta for the series there, and I was throwing a bullpen there, so trying to come back before I got this.
How has being a parent really even amplified what the Jimmy Fund experience has been like for you, and what it's like to be to recognize the circumstance of those who are dealing with kind of terrifying health circumstances?
Absolutely. I was telling Miss Lisa, who's basically my liaison there at the Jimmy Fund. I was like, last year was impactful and had a certain amount of impact on me and everything, but this year has brought an entire new meaning for what we do with the Red Sox, with the Jimmy Fund, and everything that goes on being a parent. Because now that when I interact with these patients and with these people and like the families, I almost kind of put myself in their shoes where it's like, man, like this could be my son, and so like just as like it could be my son, like these are their kids. This is someone's son, this is someone's daughter, this is someone's sister, this is someone's brother. And so when I see that, now that I've felt that impact of what it's like to be a father, like it's changed everything for me, and it's given me a bigger heart for everyone. And it's just one of those things that like, I want to be able to, again, give as much of myself and give as much of the team as we can to the Jimmy Fund, just again to be whatever we can to do to help in any way we can.
Garrett, I've been involved in this a long time, and you go down there and you visit, and right away you go and you play with the kids, and it's great because you put a smile on their faces, right? That's the amazing thing. But then, what always tugs on my heartstrings is when you're talking to the families, you're talking to the parents, right? Because they're I swear the kids, and there's been so many, some patients and kids that I've gotten to get to know and stay connected to over the years. You always hear the stories. The kids are actually upset when they're told they don't have to come back anymore, right? Because they want to go back. That's the play place, right? That's what they think of it is. But the parents, man, you said it. Like, now that you're a parent, I've got 2 sons. Alex, you have kids. It's you can't imagine what the families are going through. Talk a little about how they've affected you, how the families have touched you in your visits.
Absolutely. I mean, again, kind of like I said last year, I was like, loving on the kids, playing with the kids, everything like that. And that's all I thought about. But this year when I went, it was like, hey, yeah, I'm going to play with the kids, hang out and everything like that. And it was so much fun. But this year I made it a lot more of an intention to like talk to the parents and be like, hey, how are y'all doing? I understand like everything that's going on. Like, how are you guys doing? How can we help you guys? Because I mean, you can just see like on everybody's faces just the care and the love that all these parents have, and it's one of those things that you just want to be like, hey, like, can I get you like a cup of coffee? Can I like do something to help you in this instance? And I tell you what, like, the love that these kids have for their parents is amazing too, because you'll see just some of these kids, like if the parent walks out of the room or something, like it'll just like almost like really tug on your heart when the kid can go like, hey, can you go check on my dad? I want to make sure he's doing okay. And it's like, man, like you're battling through all this and you've got the strength to go through all this, and yet you have this selflessness to ask and think about your parents and how they're doing and all this. I mean, it just like, it makes you just realize and look inward and say, man, like we could be doing so much more, and like we should be just looking outward a lot more than we really do. And it just brings joy to your heart when you see these kids do that. And like, again, you really want to be there for the families as well, because they're going through everything and they're battling just as much as the kids are.
You're 1,000,000% right. The kids, the families are absolutely amazing. We get to learn so much about both personal strength and interpersonal strength from getting to meet some of these kids, some of these families. But I want to know what you think, what you've learned about the Jimmy Fund itself. You mentioned Miss Lisa, which I imagine Lisa Sherber probably gets a great kick out of hearing herself referred to that way. How would you describe the environment that's created, that's nurtured inside the walls of the Jimmy Fund? What you've encountered about that very special venue?
Yeah, I tell you what, from the moment you walk in, I mean, just whether it be the nurses, the doctors, the receptionists, like anyone that is connected with the Jimmy Fund, I mean, I don't think you walk 5 feet without seeing smiles and without seeing joy in people's hearts. And it's so refreshing to see all of that when you walk into this clinic and you see the joy, you see the passion that these nurses and doctors and receptionists have to be there. Like, to them, it's not work. It's like a joy to come there and be around these kids, be around the patients and everything they do. And I mean, from the top down, every single person is just smiles and hugs and high fives and like, hey, how can we make today a great day? And it's just refreshing to see that kind of energy, that kind of life, that kind of just rejuvenation and joy in every single person you interact with. And you can't help but start smiling yourself. You'll walk out of there and be like, man, my cheeks and jaw are a little sore. Like, what the heck? And it's like, oh yeah, it's just nonstop smiling the whole time I was there, because that's what everyone else is doing. And it's just an infectious like joy and an infectious happiness and just everything that you have the second you walk in there. It's amazing.
You know, there's such a history of support from the Red Sox, right? And it's passed on from player to player, generation to generation. You mentioned Nathan Eovaldi. I talked to him last week when I was with the team down in Texas. We talked about the telethon and what it still means to him. You know, that doesn't end, right? You get traded, you sign elsewhere. Your connection doesn't. Brock Holt will be a big part of this over the next couple of days. Will Middlebrook said he's going to obviously be a part of it. But can you remember sort of being a young player here and first sort of hearing about this and sort of learning about the platform and tell us your early sort of organic connection and how it grew?
Yeah, I mean, shoot, it started in spring training in 21, my very first days with the team. I mean, obviously that was when COVID was still lingering, and unfortunately, like none of the patients were able to come and everything like that. But like Nate was still telling me, like, hey, you know, like I got these Zooms with, you know, whether it be with schools that did a great job fundraising, or you know, with companies, the same thing, or even with like just FaceTiming or Zooming with patients. And I was like, wow, you know, like I've heard of philanthropical stuff that like teams do. I mean, we did little things here and there when I was in the minor leagues, but it was nothing to the extent of what the Jimmy Fund and the Red Sox do together. And I mean, as you said, it's evident with, I mean, every time I talk to Will or Brock or anyone else, like Nate, like it eventually comes up, you know, like, hey man, like how's things going with the Jimmy Fund? Like they'll ask me, and then like I'll be like, hey, like what are some of your stories and everything like that you got to be involved with? And I mean, even this year, me and Will did something together in the like where y'all are at with Nesson. Like we did something up there. I mean, he still has such a heart for everything that's going on, and it's impossible not to, because you see everything that happens in the relationship between just like the players and the patients and the faculty and staff and everything. And it's it's one of those things where you just know that, like, man, something good and something right is happening here. And when you have that, it doesn't just leave whether you change geographical locations or not. Like, a piece of your heart will always still be at the clinic with those patients, everywhere you go.
Joined in Portland by Marcelo Mayer. You know him, so we don't need to do too much explaining about who he is and what you are. Let's start with this, though. You and I have talked in the past about duck boats and about your fascination with this phenomenon of duck boats in Boston. How much attention were you paying to the Celtics parade?
We definitely realized the duck boats. Obviously, we couldn't really watch it because we were playing, but it was really cool to see on social media all that stuff, and see the city show out for the Celtics. They had a great year. They were a great team, so it looked like a really fun parade. If we didn't play, we were all going to go.
Well, I mean, you guys started talking about duck boats back in January, I want to say, around the rookie development program.
Yeah, I'd say more so in spring training when we were kind of around each other every day. It was kind of like an ongoing joke, and then kind of media found out about it, and that's when it blew up. But
sorry,
no, it's all good.
What interests you about the idea of duck boats? Like, why has this become something that you and Roman Anthony and Kyle Teal enjoy talking about?
I'd just say because to get on a duck boat, you have to win a World Series. I mean, that's kind of like the thing in Boston. You win and you get on a duck boat and go through the city. So, that's kind of where it started. Obviously, the question was, have you ever been on a duck boat? Meaning, have you won a World Series? Yeah, and obviously the answer is no. So that was kind of the joke, and then it kind of blew up.
I mean, it is incredible, though, right? Like, when you watch what it's like to see a parade like that. Like, in Boston, it's, the turnout is something else.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said before, the fan base in Boston is amazing. And, I think there's 4 sports there, and all 4 sports, it's one of the best sports cities in the world, really, not even just the United States. So to see it on social media and see all the fans show out, see it on Barstool, all those funny videos, see how excited and, how much fun the players were having, enjoying that experience, makes you want to be on one even more. Yeah,
well, so there won't be a duck boat in Portland. You've already told me that you won't take that. They are available, great tourist city, but and I should add that, like, with somewhat disappointingly, like, you guys did not win the first half Eastern League title. That said, you have been here for the entirety of about the entirety of the first half. You and I visited last year, shortly after you had been promoted, and that was, I want to say, May 31st was your first game in Portland last year. Yeah. So you've been here for a year.
Yeah. Time flies.
Yeah, it does. It's a great city. It's a great environment. How eager are you to get out of Portland and start playing somewhere else?
Yeah, I'm eager, for sure. I definitely, the goal is to be a big leaguer, and obviously Portland is AA, so, I think I speak for everyone when we all say that we want to get out of here. We enjoy our time here. We love playing with each other, but at the end of the day, like, we all want to be big leaguers and, play for rings, play for World Series. So yeah, the goal is to be a big leaguer, but I've been enjoying my time here as well.
I mean, you talked last year, and that was early in your time in AA, right? So you were like, ground beneath my feet. Like, focus on where my feet are.
Yeah.
Cool. Like, good perspective. Is it a little bit harder to look at the ground beneath your feet when you have been, I mean, you're a guy who would move fast, right? Like, you spent a couple months in, you spent 4 months in Salem, I think, before getting promoted to Greenville. You were out of Greenville by May of last year, so it was probably about 4 months there. Yeah. When did you start getting a little bit itchy about getting out of here?
I mean, I think everything you mentioned there is, front office things. Like I said, I've said it plenty of times. I'll say it again. I'm where my feet are. The only thing I could control is going out there and playing hard, and kind of letting that take care of itself and having the front office do their things. I can't call myself up, so there's no point of me playing that game.
So you have been in a different position this year than you were last year. Like, last year, a lot of us didn't know you were healthy. You were dealing with the shoulder stuff until, boom, all of a sudden your season ends on that abrupt note, which no one likes to not play.
Yeah,
and that seemed like it was a really hard thing for you. What did you learn from being injured last year? How did that change your approach to 2024?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, looking back at it, I learned a lot. When you're going through it, though, it's hard to, see the bigger picture, like they always say. I'd say the biggest thing that I learned is I just learned more about my body than I ever did before. I've had some injuries here and there, but not that big, not a season-ending injury where I missed 2 months. So going down to Florida, getting therapy done every single day, doing therapy almost every day in the off season, I really got to know a lot about my body, what I need, to be ready for a game, for a training session, all that stuff.
Although the thing that I noticed in spring training was like there was also a bit of an edge to you, right?
Yeah.
Like whether it was, I don't know whether or not, whether or not it was conversations about like, oh, is Marcelo still like, a top 10 prospect in the game? Or like, there were questions, right? Like, when people don't see you at your best,
Yeah.
it changes the way that they perceive who you are as a player.
Of course.
It seems to me this spring, like you were kind of like a bat out of hell in spring training. Like you came in ready to just like, not just hit the ground running, but like at a dead sprint.
Yeah, I was pissed. Like I said, my season got cut short last year. I didn't play well. I was dealing with injuries, and, I had a long off season of a lot of therapy, going through a lot of things. So, I was extremely angry, and I wanted to just go out there and show myself and show people that, that I'm a competitor and I play hard and I'm really good.
How well do you feel like you've fulfilled those, that kind of expectation for yourself over the course of this first 3 months in Portland?
I think I've had a great year so far. Obviously, it's good to see numbers up there. But like I said, I think I've gone about my business the right way, gone about my work the right way, and it's good to see numbers, but I think that's the most important part for development and getting better.
What like when you define, let's set aside the numbers. The numbers are great, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, so we won't just set them aside totally, but what do you like about the way that you're playing the game?
I'd say just how hard I've been playing. Getting out of the box hard, playing hard for my teammates, trying to win. Obviously, that's like kind of a lost art in minor leagues, and it was cool to see the team come together the last 3 weeks, because we knew we were in first place, playing for a playoff push, playing for each other. So, yeah, I'd say that, and just, the fact that I've been out there playing, having fun with my teammates. I missed 2 months last year. The year before that, I missed a month. So being able to be out there, play hard, is really all I could ask for. I'm having a good time.
You've had this, you've been around teammates for a long time through this process, right? Like you were in, there's no time off now in baseball, which is a little bit weird, but I guess they give you the time off between mid-November and the end of the year. But, you're spending a ton of time in Fort Myers, working out with these people. You are as I said, you guys hit the ground running in spring training. You don't ease into it. You guys are in spring training behind the scenes doing all kinds of work, competing really intensely in the cages. Mm-hmm. And you and Roman are roommates. That pairing is a really interesting one to me. Both of you guys, obviously, young for your draft classes, left-handed hitters who have this kind of natural all fields ability, but also you're kind of tapping into this it feels like you're discovering this superpower of what it looks like when you pull the ball really hard down the right field line. How much does it feel like you and Roman have known each other forever?
Yeah, it really does feel like that. I think we clicked really quick and, got along right when I met him last year. And I think we got to know each other really well as off the field and on the field. So, he knows my swing really well. I know his swing really well. So, if we're ever, going through a little bit, I have someone to talk to about my swing. He has someone to talk to about